With this brief, short introduction, I would like to move on and share some of my clinical experiences. Uh, Very early in the pandemic last year, just when lockdown had started in our country, is when I was requested by some of the this a senior government officer uh, in our country whose kid was admitted to the hospital uh, because of uh, falling SpO2 levels, and he was on ventilator support and constant sedation, and had been prescribed corticosteroids and antibiotics very early, but his situation was getting worse. When I went to see that, like I said, very early in the epidemic and early in the pandemic, and yeah, it was very new experience going to an ICU wearing a PPE kit. You almost feel like an astronaut, but then you're supposed to do the same homeopathy. So, when I inquired from the parents, because the boy was sedated completely on ventilator support, so the only thing which I got from them was the evolution of complaints, which started with a dry cough and sore throat initially, then fever rose up to 101.2, and the fever was there usually with chills and rigors. There was body ache, there was headache, and later on the dyspnea grade 5 ensued. No past illnesses. Father suffered with dyslipidemia. Mother was hypothyroid, and there was no marked change in the generalities. Again, there was no major deviation apart from the general changes like loss of appetite or bowels getting disturbed or sleep being disturbed. Apart from that, there was no major deviation in the generalities. So, because there was no deviation, so we did not consider that the investigations at that time, especially because it was early in the time when we still did not have COVID scoring available for the CT scans. The only thing we saw in the CT scan was multiple ground glass opacities in the bilateral posterior lobes of lungs. Vitamin D was low, CRP was high, and the other thing that I observed while sitting in the ICU with the patient for a while, that when you see the chart which was maintained by the nursing staff, what we saw that over the days the urine output was slowly decreasing, even though the IV fluids were on, and even when they prescribed antipyretics to reduce the fever came down, but there was hardly any sweat visible ever. Uh, at that time, that once uh, in one of the visits when I was there to observe the kid, uh, after they prescribed antipyretics, I waited for about 3 hours. The temperature came down, but I could not observe any sweat anywhere. Uh, Also, he required regular enema for bowel movements. Uh, uh, Whenever you are observing a patient in the ICU, then besides the general traits, you also have to touch the patient and see, if there is temperature variation anywhere on the body. You must look at the eyes, the pupils. You must look at the face, the nose, the complexion, the color, any kind of twitching, fidgety movements on the limbs, anywhere or in any part of the body, etc., amongst the other things. So, when I observed him, and I went for 2 consecutive nights because the first night I was not sure, but second night also when I went, I saw that the urine output had further gone down. Second day also in a row, whenever they administered antipyretic, and there was no sweating at all. And what I observed on the very first night and second night was that every 20 to 30 minutes there was a twitching on the feet. And I asked the parents about it, that, have you ever observed it earlier? They said, no, we don't think we have observed. So this entire phenomena, you know, of lack of uh, discharges anywhere, whether it was bowel movement or urine or perspiration, uh, or and the phenomena that there was fidgety feet, uh, which was observed consecutively for 2 to 3 hours over 2 consecutive nights, and that determined the prescription of Zincamet. So I prescribed Zincamet LM1 every 3 hours, and Zincamet is easy to understand, but by LM potency, because in the sixth edition of the Organon, Hahnemann writes in the footnote to Aphorism 270 that by this method of dynamization, the uh, he has found these potencies to be the most powerful, at the same time mildest in action, that is, as the most perfected potency. And even medicines of a long continued action may be repeated in short intervals. It is best to begin with the lower degrees of dynamization and, when necessary, advance higher, even more powerful but mildly acting degrees. So that's why he was prescribed Zincamet LM1 every 3 hours. Uh, mm, so because he was under sedation and he was on the ventilator support, so the parents were asked to administer it through the Ryle's tube, the nasogastric tube, and then 3 days later, when I visited, uh, then I was informed that the urine output had increased within the first 48 hours of the administration of the remedy. The perspiration increased, and he was afebrile after the third day. And gradually, he was being weaned off the ventilator support with improving SpO2 levels. But of course, he required constant oxygen support at 5 liters, and the kid was no more sedated. So he was a little weak. He smiled a little. And then, but what was observed even in the first follow up was that the feet were still very fidgety. So we moved on to Zincamet LM2, which was now prescribed every 4 hours. And then 4 days later, uh, uh, when I saw he was in a further better situation, he was able to move around. But whenever he moved around, his SpO2 dipped to 84, 85, and but there were still fidgety feet. He could retain fluids better, but he used to vomit after solids. So the parents and the nursing staff, they primarily kept him on a fluid diet, and that's when he was prescribed Zincamet LM3. Now 4 times a day. Uh, so 5 days later, I saw him, and he had been discharged from the hospital a couple of days earlier. And but while moving again, his oxygen used to dip, and he could retain solids, but the fidgety feet were still marked. So we moved on to Zincamet LM4, but now prescribed thrice a day. So, as he improved, we reduced the repetition. And so after Zincamet LM4, and then, a couple of days later, the father, being a very senior government official, so I received a call from him. He said that, that the treating pulmonologists of the hospital were asking that, what amount of steroids have I prescribed? I said, uh, what, uh, what made you assume that I had prescribed steroids? He said, well, the pulmonologist said that, uh, these cases only respond to steroids, and we were trying steroids, and possibly the homeopathic doctor also administered steroids, but in a stronger potency. It'll be nice if you can ask him what kind of steroids he's administered, because I want to check whether the kid is going to suffer with any side effects. So, as is well known, that's life for homeopathic physicians. If the remedy works, then we're probably prescribing steroids. If they don't work, well, anyway, it's placebo. So, moving on to another case, I will share with you of a 38 years old man who was admitted again in the hospital, uh, admitted to the hospital with constant oxygen support at about 6 to 8 liters, and he was being nebulized, but his SpO2 levels were dipping. And he had been treated with corticosteroids and antibiotics so far, but again, he was not responding. And the most interesting part was when I went to see him in the hospital was There were numerous ecchymotic patches on the limbs, both sides, not on the trunk, but primarily on the limbs. Um, so again, we asked for the evolution, and they said that initially again there was cough and sore throat, then fever went up, then there was fatigue, and there was dyspnea, there was acid dyspepsia, and a lot of burping, bloating, and a lot of burning in the chest. And all these complaints had been there for about 12 days, and there was body ache as well. Uh, so the most interesting part was the constant sour eructation and the water brush. And he said that there's so much of sour tasting water that comes up that it almost sets my teeth on the edge. Uh, his father had been an alcoholic, and he himself used to consume almost 250 to 300 ml of whiskey every day over last 6 years. And the mother had died because of gastric cancer. His TLC count was low, ESR was elevated, CRP was elevated, and there was also some thrombocytopenia, which had never been observed earlier. And almost 2 months prior to our meeting, he had gone through an annual health checkup, wherein all the counts were normal. His TLC count also, his ESR was also fine, CRP was normal, and there was no thrombocytopenia. So it all arose with the onset of disease. So now when we go through the Materia Medica, we find under the remedy petechiae, purpura hemorrhagica, blue spots, livid red blotches, suited to topers, hereditary tendency for alcoholism, great painfulness, sour belching, sets teeth on edge. The remedy was sulfuric acid, and we prescribed acid sulf thrice a day for 3 days. And we prescribed it as a water potency, 1 drop in about 100 ml of water. And the patient was advised to strike the bottle 10 times, holding it in the dominating hand against any firm surface, maybe a mattress, or against the palm of the other 10 times. And then to be administered 1 teaspoon thrice a day. So 3 days later, when I visited, and I was informed that he was afebrile after 18 hours of the medication, and the oxygen support and the requirement for oxygenation had gone down. Uh, in the previous 3 days, the platelet count had gone up to about 1 lakh. So, as per the teachings of the Ordinance of Ordinance 245, 6th edition, where Hahnemann writes, every perceptibly progressive and strikingly increasing amelioration in a transient or persistent disease is a condition which, as long as it lasts, completely precludes every repetition of the administration of any medicine. So, because he was afebrile and because his counts had improved considerably, so that's when we moved him to placebo, which was then continued same way, thrice a day. Then, in the next follow-up is when the patient reported that he had observed that he could not spell things clearly now, but there was no dyspnea, no fatigue. He did not require oxygen support further. His platelet counts had gone up to 1.4 lakhs, and CRP had come down from 20 to 2.6. And TLC count was also up to about 4,800 now. So he was continued on placebo. And then on 23rd, he was discharged from the hospital, and his chest X-ray was normal. There was still loss of sense of smell, but he was continued on placebo. And I think that's the last that we saw of him. He was perfectly fine after that. Uh, Very simple, easy prescribing, simple remedies. Remember, we never base our prescription on the diagnosis. We always prescribe for the patient. So this entire totality of the onset of the ecchymotic patches with the onset of disease, with extreme sour eructations and sour water brush setting teeth on edge, And with the background of hereditary tendency for alcoholism was the reason for prescribing sulfuric acid. See, every remedy in a materia medica has produced febrile affections. Every remedy has produced effects on the respiratory tract. Every remedy has produced some of the other effect on the digestive tract, on the musculoskeletal system. But it is the totality of symptoms, the totality of the indicated symptoms or the characteristic symptoms that govern our choice of the remedy. Moving on to another case. So this 72 years old man was brought. He was home quarantined completely, and he was brought by his son because his SpO2 levels had dipped from to 89 to 92. And one day prior to our meeting is when the son had spoken to me on phone and told that suddenly I find my father's been weak and he's hardly getting up. I also find him breathing a little heavy. When I ask him, he simply says, I'm just feeling weak and tired. And this was, a couple of months after the, uh, almost about 6 or 7 months after the lockdown had been enforced. And uh, because they say in an extended family, so the son is and the daughter-in-law are fortunately very caring. So they had also, enforced that, my the parents cannot step out. So he simply said, I'm going weak because you're not allowing me to go out. So, the son monitored the temperature, and when I saw him in the previous 24 hours, the temperature had ranged between 98.8 to 100.2. And there was a slight pain in the tummy, slight shortness of breath, and there was a little bit of productive cough with some mucoidal expectoration. So when I inquired from him carefully, he said that he felt cold, especially in the back, and he felt in spite of being tugged in tightly, uh, uh, he could not feel that kind of a warmth in his back. So sometimes he wanted to take a little bit of hot water bag on the back, and then at in very few tiny moments over last previous nights, he said sometimes I felt too hot at night and I wanted to uncover myself, and there's some aches and pains around the wrists, ankles, and feet. And whenever he was given the antipyretic in last 24 hours, he said that there was uh, sweating, and that sweating, especially in the axilla, smelled like onion. So these are characteristics, and because they've been speaking to me one day prior, so I asked them to run the test and also go for a CT scan of the chest, and the CT scan showed that there was a COVID scoring of 10 out of 25, the CT severity scoring for COVID pneumonia, and the blood test showed that the D dimer was slightly elevated, IL-6 was high, quite high. And as you can see, these tests were done on the 30th of November. And they also did the entire fever panel. So there was no dengue fever antigen. Vidal was non-reactive. CRP was super high. LDH was also high. And there was also some blood and some pus cells in the urine. So when we go to the materia medica for this case of COVID pneumonia, you find chills running up the spine in the evening, continued after retiring, and could scarcely get warm in the bed. Chilly, cold all day, heat during night, with strong desire to eat. Axillary sweat, smelling like onions. So when you have an axillary sweat smelling like onions, there are two most prominent remedies in a materia medica. One is Califos, the other is Bovista. And then there was prostration and exhaustion. The interesting part of the prostration was that his vitality was so prostrated that he could not even develop a fever, a frank fever. And when you find a CT scoring, when you compare the CT scan to the onset of his complaints, his fever had just started one odd day prior. That's all. Otherwise, he'd just been feeling weak and a little shortness of breath. So that is what we call neurasthenia in a materia medica. When your body does not have that vitality to throw out symptoms. So he was prescribed the water potency of Califos 200, prescribed thrice a day. Um, and then, I saw him a few days later, and he said that the son reported that, on the day two of the medication is when they noted the temperature going up last, and his SpO2 had improved. His coughing decreased with yellowish expectoration a couple of times, and then he was followed with placebo. So another 3 days later is when we repeated the blood tests. So we found that the D dimer had gone down, IL-6 had normalized, mm, CRP had also gone down considerably, and so another week later is when we found that he was much better in all. There was no fever, and again he was continued on placebo. Another week later is when he only complained of slight weakness, and once in between when he had some loose bowel movements, and he was continued on placebo. And in the first week of Jan this year is when we repeated the CT scan, and the only thing we found was sequelae of some COVID infection, and that's when he was prescribed a constitutional drug. In his case, he was prescribed opium, which was his constitutional drug. And now, if we look at it very clearly, in a span of 10 days, purely with homeopathic medicines, without any antibiotic, without any corticosteroid, without any remdesivir or ivermectin, without just with homeopathic medicine, we could bring down the D dimer, the interleukin drastically. We could bring down the CRP drastically. We could bring down the LDH also. Uh, Homeopathic medicines are very powerful drugs, provided they hit at the exact totality. So if we get that covered, even a remedy like Califos then becomes a tool for treating COVID cases. Now, next, I'd like to share with you one case of a man who had a pretty complex condition besides the COVID pneumonia. So this is when, on 5th of November last year is when a man in his late 40s was brought by his wife and family members in an ambulance to the clinic with persisting high fever, extreme extreme tachyapnea. There was dehydration and the SpO2 levels were down. And he had been taking antibiotics and antipyretics over the last couple of days with ivermectin. Uh, but obviously, the condition was worse. And why he was brought to the hospital? Because they'd taken him to a hospital, but seeing the condition of the hospital and the cases out there, the family decided that, they will bring it out to me. The entire family comes to me for homeopathic treatment. But this is the first time that the man of the house was brought to me. So again, the evolution, body ache, headache, the temperature was hovering between 100, 1 and 4, and these complaints had been there for about 10 days. Now, the wife and the entire family had gone out to attend their family wedding, and he was left behind because he had been running fever for about 2 days. They were out there for about 5 days for a destination wedding, and when they returned is when they saw him in a critical condition. And eventually, that's how he came to me. There was shortness of breath, occasionally productive cough with yellow green expectoration, profound weakness, fatigue. There was nausea, there were vomiting. So, the indications or the characteristics that we found in the case, he felt cold all over, could not get warm enough in the bed, took even hot water bath to feel warm. And uh, that was for the rest of the body. But on the head, he liked ice packs, cold packs. There were times when even water could not be retained and he threw it up, but he still wanted sips of water every now and then. It was unquenchable. Even when it was thrown up, he still wanted another sip of water. There was burning in the abdomen, throat, and back, better by covering in warmth. Restless, fretting, anxious. He was scared of being isolated. And he said, Dr. Gyan, now if you'll isolate me, what if something happens to me? How will family come to know? What if I need something? How can I manage? I'm too weak. I can't even get up. Uh, and the family said over the last couple of days, whenever they've tried to offer him something to eat besides water, he refused. He said, just take the food away. It makes me nauseous. So now when we look into the materia medica, we know restless, anxious, burning pains, better by heat, wants body in the warm room and head in the refrigerator, as Herring beautifully described, cannot bear the smell or sight of food, drinks often but little at a time, dread of death, when alone or going to bed. So that he was prescribed arsenicum album, the obvious remedy, 200 every 4 hours, again in water. And we prescribed certain investigations. So when we ran the tests is when we found the elevated bilirubin, elevated SGOT, SGPT, the LDH was high, GGTP was high. Now, sometimes the enzymes can also be elevated because of the intake of the antibiotics. Uh, Another thing that we found was typhoid, pretty high titers, and of course, there was COVID infection. CRP was high, interleukin 6 was high, LDH was high, D dimer was high. Uh, and as you can see, ESR was 113. So, so there was a double infection, typhoid and COVID. So, anyway, that does not change the prescription. The prescription for the patient was arsenicum album. And then after arsenicum album, the temperature reduced from 101 to 104, came down to 9900. SpO2 was maintained better. Cough started decreasing the very next day of the remedy. Vomiting also stopped. He could eat a few spoons of lentils, but the wife said that, he only wants piping hot lentils. So that craving for super hot food is also another indication for arsenicum. And he was still continuing to sip water. That's when we elevated the potency. We gave him arsenicum album 1000, 9 powders thrice a day, along with best medicines. Best medicines means placebo. So then we saw him again a few days later. He was afebrile now. SpO2 was maintained better. Coughing has reduced. No vomiting. Could eat a few spoonfuls of solid food now. And placebo was continued. A few more days later, in the next follow up, he was even better further. And he said now only a little bit of weakness remains. And he said that, now an itching has developed over his body and he could see the skin was peeling off and he could eat a lot better. So that's when the tests were repeated, and the Vidal test was now normal, absolutely, and all the counts had come down. Now, even the ESR had come down from 113 to 53. Now, most interestingly, you see, without any antibiotics, the typhoid becomes normal, goes away, without any of those ivermectin, remdesivir, without corticosteroids, without any possible antibiotic treatment, you find that the CRP comes down drastically in a span of 2 weeks from 158 to 2.5. Interleukin level falls down from 163 to 3.75. LDH level comes down, and even D dimer is stable. ESR goes down completely. So this is the beauty of homeopathy, and especially when you can treat, you can hit two birds with one stone. So I always try to explain in my cases that you have multiple diagnostic conditions, multiple symptoms which are treated with a single remedy. And another interesting thing that we find as a takeaway from the from this is what Hahnemann observed in the Organon. In Aphorism 35, he talks about, he starts talking about three different scenarios where two dissimilar diseases meet in the body. And especially in this case, the third part of when two dissimilar diseases, he writes, when two dissimilar acute infectious diseases meet, then sometimes you find that they occur simultaneously in that person without eclipsing each other. So he talks about one of his experiences where, in an epidemic, smallpox and measles were prevalent at the same time. And sometimes you found that in a few cases, both of them occurred simultaneously. This is another example. This particular patient is another example of a similar phenomena when typhoid and COVID-19 occurred simultaneously in that sick individual at that point of time, but treated with a single indicated homeopathic remedy, Arsenicum alpha. Now, uh, one of the last experiences I will share with you today is uh, a recent case that I've seen um, of severe COVID infection. So, this the family of 35-year-old man. Now, his in-laws are the ones who've been my patients for a long time, and this gentleman stays in Dubai, and he fell ill after he came back to India for a while, and they consulted me because he had persisting fever and cough and diarrhea. There was no appetite, and eventually, on recommendation of somebody, when they bought the pulse oximeter, they found that his SpO2 had gone down from to 85 to 88, and that's probably why he was breathless. And they tried to rush him to the hospital, but they were unable to find a bed. There was no oxygen support, and it's been all over the news in our country that we are not having adequate oxygen support. There's a shortage, major shortage of for the oxygen cylinders in our country currently. We're trying to work it out, but that's exactly so. Because that was not available, so on the recommendation of the in-laws is when this guy's family contacted me. So I spoke to him on phone, and that's the information that I got. That he'd been unwell for about 10 to 12 days, and the family physician had been treating him for typhoid because they did the typhoid testing and they found it positive. But that's another interesting thing. I have seen in certain of these cases, you will find that typhoid tends to go positive, but actually it is a COVID infection. So there was profound weakness and fatigue. The body temperature was hovering between 101 and 105. They had tried three different antibiotics, uh, but the fever was still persisting. He was passing stool 4 to 5 times a day, and there was extreme shortness of breath, dyspnea grade 4. And the patient also had a constant dry hacking cough with mucoidal phlegm. There was no thirst, there was no appetite. The only thing he could take over last few days was a little bit of sweet lime juice and or a little bit of fresh sweet lime as a fruit. But he could not take too much of that. Maybe half a glass of a juice he would take slowly over 10-15 minutes, or he would probably nibble through half a sweet lime fruit. Uh, and he also preferred coconut water over the regular water, which he found more acceptable to his taste. There was also weakness in the chest, and there was he also complained of an intense headache, a very heavy headache on the vertex, as if there's something heavy which was lying there. So now when we corporate from the Medina Medica, what we find is that he longs for something refreshing and juicy. There's an extreme weak feeling in the chest. There's a crushing weight on the vertex, and there's weak or debilitated with free secretions. The remedy is acid phos, my friends. So again, we prescribed acid phos 200 in water every 3 hours. Considering his serious condition, And we asked him to go for a CT scan of the chest. Because there's been a surge in the COVID cases, we had also recommended blood tests and an RT-PCR to confirm the COVID infection. Uh, but like I said, there's a recent surge, so a lot of labs are not really able to handle the pressure or the rising demand. A lot of labs have also run out of the kits, and even when you prescribe tests, the RT-PCR or blood tests, so it takes uh, almost up to a week, to for the guy to come and collect a sample. Uh, anyway, India is very well known for the huge population, so and also the number of cases are uh, too much. And then, of course, the panic that accompanies. So, besides those who are the needy, there are also who are greedy, as I would say, or needy in because of the high anxiety levels, and they want to run the tests. So that's why there is a shortage. So yes, they could find time and an appointment for running a CT scan, and the CT scan score was 22 out of 25. And so this is a very recent case that I've just treated. And again, no antibiotics were given ever since we started acid force. Uh, no antibiotics, no corticosteroids, no ivermectin, no antipyretics also. And then, uh, a couple of 2 days later, is when we had the first follow, that fever reduced from 101 to 105 to about 100, that day, which was day two of the medication. And SpO2 was now being maintained at 90 to 91. Diarrhea reduced. Weakness was still intense. And the family was complaining, he sleeps too deep, too long. They have to bang on the door. And sometimes, they have to call repeatedly before even answers the phone call. And then the family also reported now he started asking for milk, which, my friends, is another indication for acid phos. Acid phos is another remedy besides Rustox apis, which also has a craving for milk. Uh, so then, a couple of days later, he became afebrile. SpO2 was better, 91 to 93, normal stool, weakness at DEM, continues to sleep deep and long, again, hard to wake up. And he wanted warm milk, warm soups, and juices. So, again, these are the indications for acid phos as a remedy. And thereafter, therefore, he was prescribed acid phos 1000. Again, 9 powders was prescribed thrice a day for 3 days. And then on 27th, he was better, much better. Weakness also reduced. He still had the same cravings. And thereafter, he was put on placebo anyway. And then we repeated the CT scan. So, as you can see, we did the first scan on the 20th. And this is 8 days later, purely with homeopathic medication. And the CT score has gone down. The severe disease severity score index has gone down from uh, 20 out of 20, 2 out of 25 to 17 out of 25. So there's a good reduction in the cases. Um, and that, my friends, is all that I have to share with you. A few clinical experiences in from the COVID disease. And let me assure you, my friends, a simple understanding of the organon and a simple study of the materia medica, simple but thorough study of the materia medica is enough to help us deal with this case of COVID prescribing. We may not be acknowledged. We may end up being the unsung heroes, but trust me, we can save many lives. And at the end, this is service to mankind. That is what our profession is about. And going back to the motto of the Organon or Sapere, if you dare to know, you can dare to do it. That's all, my friends. Thank you so much. Bye.